Dear Borami and ActionAid Cambodia team, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you through this video at the opportunity of the launch of your country strategy paper. I read it. It's a very powerful document. It's a very brave document, particularly in the context that you go through in Cambodia. I believe that your alignment with the global strategy is very clear and very important, as well as your clear focus on the youth, on women's groups, and on children to bring sustainable transformation into Cambodia. Uh, my sense is that the first thing as we launch a strategy is to really have a deep reflection. What are the changes that are required to make sure that the strategy becomes a reality? Uh, Writing a document and agreeing on a strategy is always a extensive process, sometimes a difficult process. However, many organizations, after approving the strategy, they do not take enough steps to implement it. So I would encourage and invite you to have a conversation. What are the changes? What are the changes that each one of you on the way you work, on the roles that you play, what are the changes that you have to go through to make sure that the strategy uh, will be successfully implemented? What are the changes on the roles? What are the changes on the culture in the organization? What are the changes on the systems? What are the changes on the priorities? So that you really internalize beyond agreeing on where you want to get, you also agree on how you're going to get there and what kind of change that are required. I think that's quite important. It's quite important to do a reflection of what do I do today and what should I be doing differently tomorrow in order to get this strategy implemented. It's very common that people approve a strategy, however, they do not go through the change into the way they work in order to achieve that. So I encourage you to have a deep reflection and maybe develop a strategy implementation plan in which you highlight very clearly what kind of changes have to happen, how you're gonna monitor the achievement of such change, and how you're going to work together and hold each other to account to collectively lead the change that's required to achieve the strategy. So I do encourage you to do that very deep reflection. Celebrate that you have a new strategy, and then next day engage into a deep reflection of how can we together change to achieve it. And I believe there is a good opportunity as well with the count models review, because you will go through a self-review about countermodal, and I think that will at least give you some elements of that reflection that's required. A second point that I want to highlight is about rooted campaigning. As you know, our global strategy as well as your CSP, they are somehow based on this new concept of rooted campaigning. What is it about? And I think it's always important to reflect on it. What does it mean? What kind of change that we have to do on LRPs to get to a rooted campaigning thinking? So first of all, it is basically a ability for us to, in one hand, be rooted in communities, rooted through our rights-based approach, with our empowerment activities, with our solidarity activities, and with our local campaigning and alternatives. So we'll be rooted in deep relationship and long-term relationship with communities that are suffering from social injustice. And at the same time, ensure that connectedness, that rootedness at local level is a rootedness that's informed by organizing and mobilizing people to claim their rights. So it's not just a rootedness based on service delivery. It's a rootedness based on the whole of our rights-based approach that includes empowerment, and within empowerment elements of service delivery, but also includes the political empowerment, the capacity building, the solidarity of other communities in the same situation of injustice, the campaigning locally to hold local authorities to account, the development of alternatives, either productive or organizative ways of organizing people, and really bring it together into a live local presence. It's not a local presence as a service deliverer, but it's a local presence as a live supporter of social change that will be led by people living in poverty. And then comes the next element, which is no community, as mobilized and organized it is in isolation, is capable of doing systemic change. For achieving systemic change, we have to connect the rootedness, or what I call this live campaigning rootedness, with other live campaigning rootedness in other communities and bring them together into a stronger movement for systemic change. So for us to do that, I think we need to reflect very carefully what kind of work, what kind of change on our local work has to happen. What kind of facilitation are we bringing? What kind of power analysis are we making at local level? What kind of capacity building towards community organizing and mobilizing are we doing? Who are our partners? Our partners capable of that leadership to lead from below process of change and to be open to connect with others to larger systemic change. So I think that interrogation is very important, as well as an interrogation on how do we allocate our resources and what kind of activities do we prioritize so we can achieve this dream of, it's a very achievable dream of rooted campaigning, very lively engagement at local level and connecting local struggles with one another and with allies to bring about systemic change. Let me finalize by reflecting a bit on how to do that in such a difficult context as the context in Cambodia. I'm aware of the shrinkage of political space. I'm aware that on the coming elections, it's happening in an environment where freedom of association, speech, and gathering is not being fully respected by the government. And I want to say that this should not be an impediment to our approach. Actually, many places in the world, we have been able to organize and mobilize from below in spite of a political repressive situation. I myself come from a country where we were in a dictatorship. I was a teenager then and was very engaged on the fight for democracy. And I remember on those times, even though we were on a military dictatorship, there was a very lively process of organizing from below, of preparing communities, of developing alternatives, of getting people prepared. Because at some stage, when there is an opportunity for political systemic change and openness and full democracy, the communities will be ready to take the fundamental steps to ensure that their rights will come first into the list of priorities in a democratic moment. So we should not be less engaged. I think it's the other way around. Organizing and mobilizing happens in any context, and I think as long as we do that with due diligence and being mitigating risks, I think we can and we should be actually even more motivated to organize and mobilize from below, so that we prepare the social fabric on the local communities that we work, as well as on national alliances. We prepare that social fabric to be ready to be resilient in the situation of repression, to be strategic in terms of fighting for the causes and for the rights, and to be allied. So together we can build a different future for Cambodia, both in terms of democracy as well as in terms of social justice. So with this message, I wish you the best of luck on the implementation of your CSP, and I wish you a very good moment in your launch. So a big hug to all of you, and our best wishes from the Secretariat and from the whole Federation to ActionAid Cambodia. Thank you.